so that our feet can actually do the job that we're supposed to do and stabilize us and move around and grip the earth and grip whatever the terrain is that we're on to be able to stabilize us and get us from point A to point B. Hey guys, welcome back to the Truth Performance YouTube channel. On this show, we have two particular styles of videos that we make here. The first is like a podcast conversational style where I like to talk to people and find out what they've found out is the truth and what they found is the truth for them and how they've been able to leverage that to make a better performing version of themselves. And then there's this version of the show where I just take single topics and talk about how you can leverage them to make yourself a better performing version of yourself. And it's also things that I've been playing with in my own life. So in today's video, we're going to be talking all about actually training our feet. We're going to talk about how our body is a kinetic chain and you are only as strong as your weakest link. And we're going to talk about just how connected our feet are to the rest of our body for our movement. And then we're going to talk about how conventional shoes are actually constricting our feet and not allowing them to move in the proper patterns that they're meant to. And then what can we do to offset it? Like, how do we even train our feet? Going to talk a little bit about the benefits of training our feet, and then talk a little bit about grounding and my favorite barefoot shoes. So if you want to skip ahead to any of those particular topics, go in the chapters below and you'll be able to skip ahead to that particular section. Okay, so before we get going too much, I just want to preface, I am not a foot guy. I am not the guy paying people thousands of dollars to send me pictures of their feet or send me used socks. Feet actually weird me out a little bit, and I don't necessarily like feet, but I have come to learn how important they actually are for overall training of your body. So when we're talking about training our body, we're constantly talking about how we are a kinetic chain, right? How everything is connected. And unfortunately, you are only as strong as your weakest link. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, that is their feet. And actually, a lot of pain that people get, whether it's in their lower back or their mid back or their hips or their knees, isn't always necessarily starting at that point. It's usually coming somewhere from downstream, but the only place where it's actually showing and manifesting the pain is further down the kinetic chain. So just because you have pain in your knee doesn't necessarily mean that you have something wrong with your knee. It could be something as small as having tight or weak muscle groups further down the kinetic chain that are pulling on tissues, that are pulling on muscles, that are pulling on your fascia. And that is exactly why we're talking about training feet. And even if it's not pain, even if it's just imbalances or bones not sitting in joints properly or not gliding through movements the way they're designed to, it literally could come down to something as small as fascia that is bound up in your feet from lack of motion and sitting stagnant in shoes that are constricting our feet from actually being active and moving. And it's the same thing for tight muscles and joints that are moving properly. It's usually not local to where the pain or the discomfort is actually showing itself. It's usually downstream. A great example of this is lower back pain. And I'm actually going to make a video all about that. And when it's done, it's going to sit up here. But most of the time, most of the people that I've worked with, their lower back pain is not actually coming from anything in their lower back. Usually it's coming from their hips or their quads or their knees and sometimes even their shins and their ankles. So another good reference point to this is when we're talking about our posterior chain. A chain is made of links. And again, you are only as strong as your weakest link. Okay, so let's talk about the feet more specifically here. Each of your feet is made up of 26 bones, 33 joints, 17 muscles, and 107 ligaments. And then, of course, there is the social fabric of our entire bodies that hold everything in place, and that is our fascia. And 5 out of 7 of our major fascial nets go right from the toes all the way up into our head. And if you want to get a better sense of what our fascia is and how it's working and how it's all interconnected, you can go down below in the description. There'll be a guide there. And that guide was actually made by my wife, who is a fascial stretch therapist and does other body work. And you can also check out the conversation I had with her when it's uploaded right here. So we're seeing more and more people with pain that they're calling chronic, or that they can't get rid of, or they just can't seem to beat. So we have to look at other angles and other possibilities of why this could be. And unfortunately, for most people, our feet, that is made up of all those bones and joints and ligaments and tendons and all these different fascial inserts, are completely asleep and they're not activating. So why is that? Well, unfortunately, it's because of modern footwear. I would say about 99% of shoes are actually doing us a disservice. And this isn't just casual shoes or dress shoes or athletic shoes. It's literally all of them, especially dress shoes and any shoe that have more of a point at the toes. And if it's designed specifically for either style or comfort, it's definitely not designed to make your feet actually wake up and activate all the different little muscles within your feet. It's almost like we're reverting backwards into ancient China, where binding your feet and wrapping them up to be as small and petite as possible was like a symbol of status. Let's not regress out back to those states. So to give you an example of how these shoes are actually working, let's take a runner. It's got lots of cushion in it. It's designed for comfort, but what is that doing? All that distance between your foot and the ground, all the extra padding, the tight wrap around your foot and around your toe box. What is all that doing? Let's look at an example. So imagine I broke my arm. And now my arm is in a cast from the elbow to my wrist. Now, if I have this cast on for 8 weeks, what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to see atrophy because I'm not able to functionally activate and stimulate all the muscles in my arm. And because of that, it's going to lack blood flow. So the skin's going to be in poor condition as well. It's not getting vitamin D and being exposed to the sun. So the skin and all the tissues are going to be weak and fragile. So I'm going to end up with one big arm and one little arm. And that's essentially what happens if we're not giving our feet a chance to breathe, a chance to activate, to grip onto the ground, and utilize all the different muscles and joints to stabilize us in motion. So what can we do to actually overcome this seemingly widespread problem? Well, the first thing we are going to do is we're going to spend more time barefoot. This way, our brain is going to connect more with our feet, creating more neural pathways and more connections and more awareness so that our feet can actually do the job that we're supposed to do and stabilize us and move around and grip the earth and grip whatever the terrain is that we're on to be able to stabilize us and get us from point A to point B. Another one, this may seem silly, but we need to move our feet. So even if you're sitting on the couch watching TV or you're doing computer work, move your feet around. Have a lacrosse ball under your feet and roll it around. Move it around so you can pin a certain spot, then open and close your toes and find a new spot. Open and close your toes. Find a spot that's a little sore and stiff and really work it with the ball. Because really all you're just doing is you're promoting blood flow and you're promoting repair and you're promoting muscle activation. Another thing you can do is put on toe spreaders. And you can get these for a couple bucks on Amazon. They're literally just like these little things that go over your toes. And instead of your toes being together like this in your socks all the time, it allows them to open up and get used to being in that position. I know I've personally used them a whole bunch. There's actually some fascial maneuvers that you can do as well to help release the fascia and promote more blood flow into your feet. If you pick up your knee and go up and put your leg over your other knee, and you can basically with your hand grab your ankle and twist it, twisting the skin almost like as if you're giving someone a snake bite, but you're doing it to yourself. And then while you're holding that tension, just take your foot and roll it around. Roll through the range of motion you have with your foot, moving different angles, and even just that alone will help activate the muscles and get things moving in your feet. Another thing that we could be doing is we could be walking with more intention. As we're walking, visualize our toes grabbing the ground and pulling us through space and time. It's literally just another element of adding intention to how you're walking. A lot of us focus on our posture, so why not focus on how our feet are actually gripping and squeezing the ground? You can slowly over time get more confident. I know me as a kid, I was a little pussy. I could not walk on rocks. I couldn't walk on pavement that wasn't perfectly flat. Like I was such a baby. But I knew that the only way to get better at it was to, practice. So I started wearing bare feet anywhere I could, whether I'm on a trail or at the beach or walking from A to B. I would go outside barefoot as much as possible. And the last thing I'm going to suggest is honestly, get some new shoes. So let's talk about some of the benefits that we're going to see when we start adding these extra elements to our day, to moving our feet, to training our feet, to getting blood flow to our feet, activating the muscles in our feet. Obviously, we're going to get more dexterity. The connection between our mind and our feet is going to strengthen, and we're going to be able to eventually maneuver each toe individually. We can spread them and squeeze them together. We can lift them up, push them down, do all sorts of things. That may not sound like a significant jump, but any piece of awareness you can gain, especially within your own body, is going to help you in the long run. Not to mention, all that is going to build strength and mobility in your feet, which, as we mentioned, if you're strengthening that link in the chain, that reduces the risk of having that link being the weak link that is causing you pains and other problems in your body. And then if you look even further into the future for that, that's going to help you be more resilient. It's going to help you be less likely to get injured, less likely to hurt yourself doing a typical task that you're always doing. So if you're always playing a certain sport, but then one day your body just can't take it anymore and you either tear a muscle or a ligament or injure a joint. Not saying it will 100% inevitably cancel out the possibility of getting injured, but you're giving yourself a higher likelihood of being more resilient to injuries by having a more evenly distributed strength and awareness in your body. And honestly, this is how I'm looking at training moving forward for my entire body. It's how can I be as strong and as capable and as agile while having strength in deep ranges of motion to make me as resilient as possible to anything that life throws my way. So one other benefit of spending more time barefoot is actually grounding, especially if you're going to be spending time barefoot outdoors. And I'm not talking about on the concrete or on the wooden patio. I'm talking feet in the dirt, feet in the grass, feet in the sand, feet in the ocean. Lakes work too. But our bodies need to connect to the earth, especially nowadays when we have so much electronics. Every single piece of electronics we're around, this microphone, this camera, everything is giving off an electromagnetic field. And that field disrupts our natural body's magnetic field. And it stores up a bunch of extra electrons that it picks up from the other EMFs. And one of the best ways to alleviate our body of all those extra electrons is to ground, connect to the earth. The magnetic field of the earth will actually pull all of those extra electrons out of your body, which reduces inflammation, which reduces stress, and has a slew of health benefits, which of course, I'm going to make a video about that too. So this right here is the barefoot shoes that I wear. This is the Nexus Knit by Xero shoes, Xero, and I'm going to make a full video review about why I've chosen this shoe, why this is my favorite shoe. But as you can see, it's completely flat soled. There's no drop in the heel, wide toe box, and there's going to be a link down below as well if you want to get a discount on Xero shoes. At the end of the day, when you're finding barefoot shoes, you have to find what works for you. So Lady made a blog for people looking for barefoot shoes that categorize people's feet into 4 different shapes. And for each of those 4 different foot shapes, she associated a list of brands of shoes that work best for that particular foot shape. So not only was this on my list and on my radar for being one of the best value barefoot shoes for what I needed on the market, but also happened to fit my particular foot shape. So I'm going to put a link to that blog down below as well. All right, guys, so that's all I got for you today on training your feet. Take your shoes off, throw them in the garbage, get new shoes, then take them off and walk around barefoot, stretch them out, roll them out. If we are aware of a weak link in our kinetic chain, why would we not want to address it? If it's in our awareness that our feet are not active and our feet are not awake and we're constantly getting foot cramps when moved into different situations, or we know we're wearing restrictive shoes that are not allowing our feet to naturally splay out, which is why barefoot shoes have really wide toe boxes to allow our toes to spread out and then to grip the ground. So if we're aware of this problem, then we're just being ignorant by not fixing it, or we just don't know how to take the necessary steps to be able to fix it, to be able to reduce the risk of being injured because we're taking care of another weakness in our link. We're getting rid of a weak link in our chain and strengthening our chain to make ourselves more resilient. And that, folks, is what it's all about, and that's how I look at training anyways. If you have any questions about barefoot shoes or going barefoot or training your feet, let me know in the comments below. And if you like this sort of content, give it a like, hit the subscribe button, and we will see you on the next one. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.